Wall Street, markets falling, tumbling.
Stocks plunging down, down, down. The Nasdaq's getting crushed. Small caps are getting crushed.
This is a shock to the system.
It is ugly out there. Worse than worst case scenario.
Stocks are getting slashed and burned. $2.5 trillion vaporized.
The operation is over. The patient lived and is healing. The prognosis is that the patient will be far stronger, bigger, better, and more resilient than ever before.
President Trump says the higher penalties come in response to tariffs those countries impose on American products they import.
Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple.
I mean, the European Union won't take chicken from America. They won't take lobsters from America. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful. We can't sell corn to India. We can't sell rice to Asia.
What do you expect the stock market to look like when it opens tomorrow in reaction to this?
I don't know.
Should we view these as permanent?
I think we're going to wait and see how this plays out.
Do you plan on having negotiations before that date?
I just don't know if there are going to be negotiations.
Canada and Mexico notably missing on that chart. Why is that?
I'm not sure.
And I have to thank a friend of mine in this group who actually sent me the video. So all right, let's start with the presentation. How is Egypt likely to be affected by the new tariffs imposed by Trump? Okay, all the slides are in English, but the discussion is going to be in Arabic for the benefit of everybody. On the table of contents, we're going to talk here about 4 items. Okay. And the idea is to shed a bit of light on this very important, very serious issue, and more or less brainstorm what's happening and try to understand and try to think of different scenarios. So we're going to be talking a bit about the US-Egypt trade profile, what we know about the new tariffs so far, the information that's available, the international impact of this US move, and the expected impact of the new tariffs on Egypt, which is the majority of the presentation. Okay, if we talk about the profile, the relationship between Egypt and the United States, very quickly we've had an evolution of economic agreements between Egypt and the US, starting back in 1994, the most important of which is the one that took place in 2004 for the QIZ. It's actually our most important agreement with the U.S., which is responsible for the most part of our exports to the United States, almost completely all of our exports in apparel. And we had also other agreements, all of them meaning to facilitate trade and investment, information technology, maximizing benefits from QIZ. But they're all simple agreements. The one that is most important is the one in 2004. This is looking at the list of products that we export to the United States. There are 70 non-oil Egyptian products that are exported to the United States. This is the whole list of them. Okay. And if you look at the actual trade relation, we're going to find that on 2024, which is the most recent data, 45.6% of Egyptian exports to the United States are ready-made garments, and they are in the range of $1.2 billion, followed by very far away fertilizers, iron, canned vegetables and fruits, carpets, fruits, nuts, cement, plastics, glassware, and vegetables. Okay, what do we know about the tariffs so far? What has been announced? Okay, there are 4 types of issues involved here. There are Egyptian exports which are not included in any preferential program, and on these there is going to be imposed the 10% ad valorem tariff, okay, plus the most favored nation tariffs. As per the agreement, the Egyptian exports of the QIZ, okay, the US again will impose 10% ad valorem tariff on these. The Egyptian exports of specific products, aluminum and steel, the US will impose 25% ad valorem tariff. The product list in Annex 2, and I'll talk about it in a second, Egypt will be subject only to the MFN tariff, just like the other nations. Okay? It also says that to avoid these measures, specifically this 10% ad valorem tariff, Egypt might consider taking action to mitigate the damage of non-tariff barriers. So the US sees some non-tariff barriers, and they say it's going to be a negotiating thing. The countries that are listed in Annex 1, okay, on these, the US is going to impose a new tariff on each country, in addition to the most favored nation. The Annex 1 presents all the countries that are subject to tariff, okay? Some exceptions to this big list of tariffs is the case of Canada. Canada got the punishment earlier, okay? On March 4th, 2025, it received tariffs of 25% on Canadian goods, 10% on energy. And on March 12th, the US imposed tariffs of 25%. Sorry, you have to understand that this was done in a hurry because the whole thing happened in a hurry. So please forgive any typos or little problems. On Canadian steel and aluminum products. The same applies for Mexico. Mexico is also another special case. Its name is not on the list, but there are previous tariffs that took place. Okay, Annex 2. So Annex 1 is the list of countries with all the tariffs that are imposed on them. Annex 2 is the list of products. Okay, it's a 38-page document starting from 050840, the name of the product, okay, all the way down to the last number, and they're all HS coded like this, okay, with the description next to it. Obviously, we did not include it all, but this is what we are talking about. And these are subject to the most favored nation tariffs, but not the new ones. Okay, the non-tariff barriers report, which are also mentioned and announced, the US published it 5 days before the tariffs, okay? And it is talking about the things that they don't like as they export to other countries. Okay, the non-tariff barriers are another game box actually for the U.S. Vietnam's experience just a couple of days ago, they offered to give 0 tariffs. Okay, and in return of this, they would have a cancellation of the tariffs imposed, and the U.S. said no. Okay, you have to play on the non-tariff barriers. They are more serious, and this is a big talk. Okay. Navarro, who's Trump's trade advisor, said that the VAT tax would be an issue in any negotiations with the EU. Okay, so this is a big open box. Okay, with lots of talk taking place. The international impact of what I'm calling the U.S. move, it starts by looking at who are the trading partners with the United States. On 2023 is the most reliable and the most complete. If you take a look, you're going to find that Mexico is the first partner. Its exports to the United States represent 86% of their exports. So the reliance is scary, and these are the countries that are going to be most hit. And it goes in order. You have Mexico, Canada, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Cambodia, and down you go. Japan, it's only 21%. China is number 29, 13.7%, which is interesting. Even if you put very high tariffs on China, it will still manage and come through. It's if ever it's going to be injured, but never killed. Okay, Mr. X is always alive. Where are we? Yes, we're here. Okay, number 53. Okay. Our exports to the United States represent 6.5% of our total exports. We are not actually a big player. Okay, there is the rest of the list is there, but I try to reach Egypt and then stop. The expected impact, okay, while hurting the entire world, the USA is shooting itself in the foot very clearly, because the tariffs are actually borne by the American consumer. He's the one that is subject to the higher prices. Okay, you are not punishing the countries. Okay, you are actually punishing your people more than anybody else. There is a lot of inflation, there is stock market collapse, all sorts of things. Not to mention that they are focusing on manufacturing. This is what they're trying to protect, and this is more or less an old-fashioned line, and there is a lot of talk about that. The US excels in services. 80% of their exports are in the form of services. Okay, this is where they excel. Okay, they are not doing well in manufacturing, and the natural cycle for products is for the manufacturer to move to other countries. So what they are doing is sort of step back and close their doors, which is not good for the US. So there is a clear message here. China is the most hit as an exporter given the high additional tariff, okay? But still, total exports of China to the US, as I said, 13.7 اتعورت يعني. Right. Smaller open economies with heavy exports to the US will be the ones that are most hit, like Mexico and Canada. Singapore, everybody is screaming.
The trade war, which has already started, and because of this, it's very clear. It is harmful to all, and it has already started. The situation today is as messy as it was prior to the Second World War, and it ended with the war. So the situation is very bad. What will happen that there will be an increase, and it's already observed, regarding the protectionism in all over the world, in addition to disruption of all the value chains, for all these value chains, and of course this will decrease the welfare for all. When there is disruption, all is being harmed, because all the benefit for all the world, regardless of the distribution, is decreased. So the last point is very important, which is receding in importance of all other urgent issues of impact on the world, like the things that have to do with the climate and financing for the climate, as well as the responsibilities of the countries and the wars, like the war in Gaza and other wars. So there is a intentional confusion, so that we will be confused as to the expected impact. When we talk about Egypt, I said today, I talked about the impact regardless of what's happening inside. The impact will be direct and indirect. It may be useful or harmful, and it will be related to the time frame. There is immediate and short term and medium term. All of this depends on the change that will take place in the positioning of Egypt regarding the competitiveness relative to the other countries. And the other thing, and this also depends on the fact that America would change its opinion, and they said they may postpone and so on. And the third thing is the impact of the non-tariff barriers, because it will be a pressure to be used. If we can talk about Egypt is on the shore. Our exports to the world is 0.26% of the world exports. So we are playing on the shore, and all the people living in Alexandria know the people playing on the shore, they do not drown and they do not sink. So this is very important. This figure is very important. And this figure comes out of a study by ECES, all the research team with us here. And we see here the experts of Egypt to the United States. We have the results for the United States. We have the experts that take place and the experts that should take place, but they don't take place. But we didn't calculate it ourselves. The people who calculated it are the ITC, which is the International Trade Center. So they have the experts and they have unrealized potential, things that should happen but it doesn't happen. When we look to this schedule, we find that it is fearful. It's for the most important 15 products. We don't have a realized potential for this. The first item and the highest item are the fertilizers. The fertilizers, we export 69 millions. The realized potential is 295. So the total is 364. And we have calculated what we implement and what we don't implement. It's 295 of the total. It's 81%. So 81% of our potential is not being achieved. In our experts to the United States and the product specifically, we couldn't be more specific than that. Based on this, we should make policies, trade policies. Then we have the machinery and the electricity. The same thing. we are talking about 98%. When we look to these numbers, 98%, 84%, 64%, all of these are very bad. The only one which is good, the total of the first 15 sectors, it's 81%. When we have it, the total of all, the 27% is the only one which is good. This is we have only 1% that is not unrealized, but we are realizing here 99%. Now we have a very big question mark. We could do more than that, but the part that is calculated in the ITC says that all the other numbers are very worrying. If we make good policies, we should base it on this or build it on this. We made some extra analysis for some sectors. We have taken the biggest 10 countries exporting to the United States, and we have compared this with Egypt in these 15 sectors. You will tell me we are comparing Egypt with the other countries and China. I tell you yes. I am convinced that we should compare ourselves with the other countries to know what are the minuses and what are the pluses. So based on this line of thinking, fertilizers are the first thing. The biggest 10 importers to the United States are Canada, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Algeria, Nigeria, Morocco, Mexico, and so on. So each one of these, and we have here the imports of the U.S., which they export to the U.S., how much that is represent from the market inside the U.S. Canada imports 46% of the imports of the U.S. from the fertilizers. The other slide, we will do this for each sector. The other slide here is the share of what is being exported to the U.S. and its importance to the exports of the country. If we look to Canada, it imports 46% of the fertilizers that the U.S. requires, and what it imports, it represents 2% of its exports. Whenever the number it imports to U.S. is a small number of its exports, it will not be impacted. For example, there is a country which is Morocco. It's 13% of its exports of the fertilizers go to the United States. So it will be one of the countries that will be impacted. Egypt exports 6% of the fertilizers. So we are away, far. As to the machinery and electricity, we don't export at all. China, the first one, 27% of the needs of the U.S., China supplies it. And then Mexico and Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, and so on. And then Japan, 4% only. These are very interesting results. We will look here and find that China, what it imports is 27% of its exports. This is important to China, and it's important to Vietnam, and it's important to Malaysia. Egypt, here we have our modest 6%. As to the fruit, Mexico imports 45% of the needs of the American market, and then Peru and Chile and so on. We don't export fruit to U.S., and this is something very strange because they have trade barriers. We will see this. We have Costa Rica is the most harmed. It has 14% of its exports go to this direction. So we have this for the top 15 and for the whole list. We should base the policies on this. And our exports of the fruit, our export of fruit is 5%. Nothing goes to the U.S. We have the plastic and the rubber. Also, we don't export to the U.S. plastic or rubber, and this is very strange. China supplies 28% of the needs of the American market of the plastic and rubber. We have a lot of this. I don't know why we don't export it. We have Canada and Mexico also, but our share is 0. As to the share of Egypt to the plastic and rubber is 5%. The mineral products, For example, the iron and aluminum have 25%. So this is not classified alone. Some of these are products and some are metals, but both of them are not good for us. We export 1% to the US, and Canada exports 17%. It is the highest. And this shows the countries that are harmed in each sector. And our exports of this product is 5%, but the share of the US is very poor. All of this is subject to reviews. The metals, I put both of them because this may include the steel and aluminum. Canada is the highest. Egypt here is 0%. These countries, we are competing with it. Bahrain is one of the countries that will be harmed because 39% of its exports goes to this line. This looks at Annex 1 countries that we have talked about before, which the US put the tariffs that it imposes on each country. This line is the tariff imposed on each country. The perpendicular line, it is the 10% of Egypt, and this compares Egypt with the other countries. And based on this, and we say only 10%, and the other people are much more, so we are fine. The countries with the red line, these are the countries out of this group of countries are the most competing countries to us, because we have chosen this group of countries because they focus on the ready-made garments specifically, because this will be the most impacted item. Our exports is 1.9 billion of ready-made garments. So the countries that compete with us in this item, they are here, and we are standing here according to the figure. Now we need to tackle this slide in details. We'll see here the tariffs. As to the other side shows the share of the country from the imports of the US. For example, if we look to Egypt, we had 0 tariff at the beginning, or 0% of the tariffs at the beginning. The increase that took place is 10%. So the total tariff that we have now and we are facing is 10%. The Philippines had 14% of tariffs, and it has imposed tariffs of 17%, so it's facing 31%, and so on. China, whatever they do with China, it reached 48%. They increased 34% for China. And the curve that looks like the waves shows the share of the country in the US market. So China, for example, the share of China is about 22%. The share of Egypt is very little, very poor. Its share of the US market, it's not 10. No, you didn't reach 10. Zero. It's 0. There's nothing. Is it clear? This figure is very important. No, it's not 9. Maybe 3. Very poor figure. The curve here, and the 10 is at the other side. You are comparing it with the other side. The other side is the share of the tariffs. So this means that there are other countries that were 0%. Like Nicaragua and Jordan, but their share is higher than ours. I think here it's clear the share of the country and the tariffs before and the one that increased and how much did it reach. This needs interpretation, and the interpretation of the observations is what we see from this chart. Despite the high tariffs and even before the adjustment, China and Vietnam have a very big share in the US market. All of this was on the ready-made garments. And so it is expected that they will resume this volume, whatever happened. They will have incentives for their exporters, and they will not lose this. Egypt did not benefit from the 0 tariffs that it had enjoyed before. This is a very important point. And what it's used to export, which is the CVC, which I asked about before, which is the cheap value cotton. The majority of the products is on the lower side. This does not mean that we don't produce the biggest things, but we didn't enjoy much this zero tariffs. As Nicaragua and Jordan, they had equal status before the new tariffs, but their shares in the U.S. market are still much bigger than Egypt. So Egypt should decrease its costs, not the cost of the production, the cost of the production and the transportation and so on, or it will be removed from the map, because each one of these have a big war to keep their shares, because there is a fight for these shares and we need to conserve our position. And there are opportunities that appear in competition with Bangladesh, for example, and Cambodia. Many countries have very high tariffs, and these are opportunities that are available. Egypt needs to encourage investments by the other countries which will try to produce in Egypt in order to benefit from the little tariffs, but America will be very alert not to allow this to happen. Like China, Vietnam and India, all of these are on top of the list, and they are seeking to invest in our country. This is the same exercise that we did before, but this has to do with the apparel, because we were talking about this. China is the highest. And this is its share. Its share is 22% of the U.S. market, and Egypt's share is 1%. It's the right for Egypt, but the share is 1%. The countries that will be harmed in the ready-made garments specifically are Bangladesh. It will be harmed because 86% of the exports of Bangladesh are apparel. So these are very harmed. These are small countries. And also Cambodia, the same thing. Its share is 33%, but Bangladesh will be more harmed. And this means we are not happy for what's happening with Bangladesh, but we have opportunities. The loss of others is an opportunity for us. As to the most important messages from this, that Egypt has a very small share of everything despite the zero tariffs. This is very important because we shouldn't export our problems abroad. We have problems and we have to face it. All the competitors are going to struggle to keep their shares in the American market. This means that they have to lower their cost inside their countries, because they couldn't do anything on the other side. They have the tariffs and the American consumption. Trump does not do anything with him, so the countries have to reduce their costs. There are opportunities that Egypt should improve the investment conditions and logistics in order to stay on the map of exporters, and it should do its homework, and its homework regarding the ready-made garments. We will talk about this. In following the opportunities, other countries may migrate their investment, but Egypt should be ready to receive the investment. There are many investments that should come from China and many other places. We have many problems inside the country, like the infrastructure and so on. So the problems inside are more than the problems outside. As the international trade wars will become more vicious, even if Trump delayed the implementation, all the countries will compete very aggressively, and this will be at the account of the weak players. And also the disruption that will take place in the value chains, it may impact our imports and everything that has to do with us. This is a sample of the results for a great study that we have made here at the center. Along 8 months or more, we have used the artificial intelligence, and we use this, and we call it, and we have a machine learning model with very good data, and we have got and calculated how much the exports could increase if we made some modifications. It was very clear. We were talking about a sample of 2,000 companies and we found the most important thing is the input release time. This is the big problem, and what is required is that all the ports would be with the same efficiency like the Cairo port. the Cairo airport, which will increase the exports of the ready-made garments a lot. Through this model, we calculated it. We should decrease the procedures so that it will be to the procedures of the cartoon. Why? Because the cartoon is more booming. It doesn't pass by the surveillance authorities. It's going very well. So we should do the same like what's happening with the cartoon. And to try to reduce the waiting time in the ports and decrease the risk regarding the procedures. As to the subsidy reform, timeliness is paramount. The support for the export, the people do not take it in the due times, which means this decrease their cash, because if we decrease the disbursement delay from 14 months to 15 days, there will be an increase in the exports. If we made compensation for the current delay, the reform priority, the automate disbursements for 15-day delivery, we should make all of these reforms. As to the clearance costs, here we have some very specific points. As to the clearance costs, which is the time and the cost to make clearance in the ports, we need to decrease the fees. And if we decrease it by 60%, this will decrease 6% for the informal fees, and to have transparency regarding the and mandate e-payments. All of these results will be submitted to His Excellency, the Minister of Trade and Investment, so that they will take procedures. And there was a prior study also through GOIC, and we need to exert more effort in this regard. Overall, as to the implications, there are ready-made garment export growth. It could happen potentially by 25% if we work on the things that we have talked about. And this argument applies on the ready-made garments and on all sectors. These are the problems with which all the sectors suffer from. These are the group of barriers that Egypt are putting, and USA is complaining from it. A big part of this are things that we are working on, and other part there is exaggeration from the US. For the sake of time, I will not talk about all the details, but all of these are included in things that we are working on, but we didn't finish all yet. In a nutshell, here we say there are 5 scenarios that could take place. Maybe they will have immediate application of the new tariffs, like it has been declared, like the USAID has been cancelled very quickly. The other scenario is to have immediate application and retaliation from the other countries, and China already started to do this. This is another scenario. The third scenario is to have delays in the implementation of the new tariffs, and Trump started to say we will not start immediately, we will wait, and all the countries are waiting for the catastrophe to happen. As to the fourth scenario, the US should return back to the old tariff system and be alert that it is harming itself before harming the others. And the fifth scenario is to have retaliation after applying these tariffs, and we will have a trade war in the whole world. This last phrase is very important. Irrespective of the scenario, Egypt needs to move very fast. Irrespective of the scenario, Egypt needs to make deep reforms and not just institutional reforms, so that the investment will increase and exporters increase. And it needs to make institutional reform to build our resilience to face the other challenges. There is an urgent need for reform. There is no better picture that we could get for this, but there is a tsunami behind this wall. But we shouldn't stop. We should evade this. I return back to this slide, and I will so that when we have a discussion and comments, we will have the framework available. We say that we are not very harmed, but all the other thing is fluid, because it depends. If it depends now, of course, it depends in the other aspects too. And thank you very much.